All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Ecom Dispensary Knowledge Drop number 6. We hope you all enjoyed last week's Knowledge Drop, and we think you're going to enjoy this one. We got some pretty fire stuff on the menu this week, starting off with episode number 26 this week. Why starting a business that puts food on the table is nothing like it's portrayed. So this was actually inspired by a tweet that I saw from this guy named, I want to say it was Nick Huber, or no, I forget his last name. His ad on Twitter is Sweaty Startup, and he basically was talking about how business books and like seminars and stuff, and the things that you see typically how business is portrayed is not really how it works when you're starting from scratch and trying to build some sort of a lean business that can support you, that you can do full time, and that you can make a living from. And I think this is so freaking true because I had such a weird and just kind of convoluted way of looking at business before I really got into it. And figuring this out, that it wasn't like I thought it was kind of the first thing, the first step towards really actually making actual progress in business. So, Scotty, I'm curious to hear what you think about this because obviously we've had pretty different routes to get to the point that we're at today.
Yeah, so I think where people just get it wrong is that they think starting a business means you're going to be running a startup and you're going to be they go and they look at what Silicon Valley companies do or what big business does, and they try to emulate that in some ways. And I mean, things you don't need if you're just trying to start your own business and put food on the table. You don't need a business plan. You don't need business cards. You don't need anything, any of those formalities that maybe business school preaches, or that in the traditional Silicon Valley world is perhaps needed, because they need all that stuff because they're trying to get outside approval. They're trying to get money from banks. They're trying to get money from VC funds. And they're basically trying to show why they're the next big thing. You don't need to prove to anyone else why you're the next big thing. You just need to show to your customer why you have something of value that they want. So you don't need to prove to any third party why you're a good business. You just need to prove to your customers. You have to get ahead in front of your customers, and you have to show them an offer that they want to buy from you for a price they want to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another part of that too is that a lot of people, I think, don't realize just how few customers it takes to make a really solid living. And this is something that I talk about fairly often, just the whole concept of like people don't really understand and they have a hard time conceptualizing. It's just kind of like how our brains work. Just like how many people there are on this planet, the sheer number of people just in the US, like 300 million. You can't picture a room full of 300 million people because it's just way too big. There's so many people in this world, in this country that you can sell to. And it really only takes a very small number of them, a very, very small percentage, in order for you to make a really good living. Like, I think one of the most eye-opening things you could do is do the math on an offer. You know, say it's $50. You can give it some sort of a margin. If you're doing e-com, give it 25% gross margins, whatever, or 25% net margins, and do the calculation of how much it would take to make enough money to support yourself in full, whatever that number is for you. For me, when I was first getting started, it was like $800 a week. If I could make $800 a week, I figured I could support myself and I wouldn't have to rely on my parents or anything. And when you do the math and you kind of reverse engineer the numbers that it takes to get there, you realize that it's really not that much. And that's kind of like what I think everyone who's listening to this, that's what you're after, right? You want to be able to support yourself in full from online business so that you can have more time freedom, you can travel, you can live more of a life that you want to live instead of going to work 9 to 5 every day. And it's nothing like it seems like in the movies. Like I literally thought that I had to invent something when I was first getting started. Like in high school, literally all I did, me and my buddy, we had these grand plans of, you know, becoming millionaires and getting rich and starting a business and everything like that. And all we did was just like brainstorm ideas, like product ideas, like inventions, things that hadn't been made before. And that's what we thought was how we were going to get rich. In reality, it was nothing like that. And like the way that I've made money up to this point has been by selling things that that aren't like crazy or new, that I didn't invent. They're just decent products that people want to buy. And there's so many of those, and you don't have to do anything that crazy. And it's like the way that things are portrayed on Shark Tank, especially. Like I wrote an email about this a couple days ago. Um, it's just such a different representation. Like that is a form of business. It absolutely is. But it's not the form of business that makes sense when you're starting from scratch and you don't have any business experience and you want to build a business that can support you.
Yeah, I think the differences in the sort of Shark Tank or startup world, I think the startup world, and obviously not an expert on that, but my understanding is that like 99% of startups are destined to fail, and that is entirely fine because the 1% that doesn't has a chance to be the next Uber or Facebook or Amazon or whatever. Um, so if you invest in startups, for example, you don't care about the 99% that fail. You're just trying to get that 1% that blows up to a massive extent. On the other hand, if you're just a normal guy, it doesn't really help me if doesn't help me if 1 out of 100 people that start ecom make it big. If 99% of people fail and I'm one of the 99, then I'm out of fucking luck and I need to go get a job. So I think that's kind of the difference in the potential is much bigger. Like with what me and Nate are doing, we're not going to start a company of Facebook size anytime soon, like ever. With what we're doing, it's just never going to happen. But the chance of success is also much, much higher.
Exactly. And it's really, I mean, it's two totally different things. Like starting a startup that has the potential to be a multi-billion dollar business, something like that requires a lot of money. It requires money, and then I mean, the two things that you really need in business are like money and experience. Those are the like two of the key things that are going to help you succeed. If you don't have those two things, if you don't have a lot of money or a lot of experience, you can't really expect to do things in like a startup way and be successful with it, because as Scotty just said, 99 whatever percent of startups fail. If you don't have any experience or any money, like it's going to be really, really tough. And that's why I think it's much better to try to start a lean business where you don't need a bunch of money up front. Obviously, experience is great, but you don't necessarily need it. And it's kind of one of those things that you just kind of gain as you go by doing. And I'm trying to think of like how to put this so that it makes sense, because it's just two totally different things, like a startup versus I don't know. I mean, Scotty, what would you call like kind of that kind of business that we're talking about, the kind of thing that we do?
Um, it's almost like a source of income. You're not trying to build the next huge company. You're just trying to put money in your bank account.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good way to put it. And when it comes down to it, with that model, it's kind of like the direct response model. Like something we talk about a lot is direct response marketing. That is literally like the skill of creating income. That's literally what it is. If you have the skill of direct response marketing, you know how to put an offer in front of someone so that they'll want to buy it. And if you have that skill, then you have a source of income basically no matter what. And that's really what it's all about. It's not about like building all these crazy things, building a team or getting a bunch of funding or having a bunch of money that you need to do like some crazy stuff with. It's really just about putting an offer out and getting it in front of the people who might be likely to buy it. That's like literally at the root of it in the most basic sense. That's all this is. And if you only focus on that, I think you're going to be a lot more successful than if you go at it with the mindset of like trying to start a startup.
I would tend to agree. So put the business plan away and start writing ads.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally it. Like, I think when you're a big company and you have a lot of resources, you can get away with doing things in a less direct way. They can afford to spend money on marketing that doesn't necessarily directly produce results. Whereas as the little guy, if you're starting a one-man operation, you are probably working on a very limited budget. And every dollar that you spend on your business, you would expect to see some sort of return. And that's kind of like one of the big principles of direct response marketing is like all of your marketing needs to be trackable. It needs to be measurable so that you can see what's getting results and what's not. And it's more of a direct way, I guess. Like that's kind of what direct response marketing is. It's putting an offer in front of someone, being like, hey, do you want this? And then, hopefully they buy it. And that's literally all it is. Um, and I just wish that I would have understood that sooner, because I just always thought that I needed to invent something. I needed to do something super new or crazy, when in reality, there are so many products out there that people already want to buy. And you just kind of have to position yourself in a way where you're the one providing it and you're putting it in front of the people who want to buy it.
Yep. I think another difference is in the startup world versus what we do, we need to turn a profit. We only get paid when there's a profit, whereas a lot of startups are all about that growth, because in order to secure more funding and in order to increase their valuation, they need to grow revenue. And a lot of the times there's sort of distant plans of profitability, but of course none of that works in sort of the self-employed lean startup world, where the lean business world, where you only get paid if there's a profit. Growth isn't just not relevant if there's no profit, which changes dramatically how you do everything.
That is super true. That's like a huge thing. Big businesses usually they're not even profitable for years. As the little guys, we don't have that luxury. We don't have the funding or a big pile of cash to sit on that we can just burn through without getting profitable. Like we need to be profitable right off the bat. And that just reminded me, I was studying some stuff and listening to some podcasts and stuff from Craig Clemens last night, who is like literally the godfather of this, like the godfather of starting a lean direct response business, not taking on any funding, doing everything from scratch. He literally has done that. And to the point where his company, Golden Hippo, employs over 900 people, which is absolutely nuts. And they have, multiple different direct to consumer brands and consumer products. And I don't know how much in revenue they do each year, but I would reckon that, it's definitely in the hundreds of millions if I had to guess. So if you,
pretty crazy.
yeah, it's nuts. He's like one of my biggest inspirations, like of all time. And it's pretty crazy too, because he has kind of a similar story to me. At least like the first part of it, he was a pizza delivery boy, just like I was. And I was just listening to some of his stuff last night, and I would highly recommend to look into him, into Craig Clemens, into Golden Hippo and what he's done, because that's like the ultimate example of starting very small, starting very lean, and then building it into something insanely big. Like that's literally the blueprint, and I very much look up to him. I think that you guys who are listening to this, that's definitely someone to study, to look into, because he's just like the GOAT, honestly.
The GOAT. Let's go.
Scotty, have you looked into Craig Clemens much?
Not recently. I've watched some interviews with him in the past.
Yeah. Pretty crazy stuff, man. Pretty crazy stuff. I think another good example is Russell Brunson with ClickFunnels. I don't think they took on any funding. They did that all from scratch, and now it's a huge software company.
Yeah. He's interesting in that he was essentially like a make money online guru, and then used all the make money online guru tactics to sell software to people who sell make money online stuff.
That is pretty true.
Like
some make money online inception there.
Yeah, he used the tactics from that world to sell to that world that he knew so well. And then also just kind of sets himself apart and becomes a lot more legit than a lot of these guys.
It is pretty crazy what they've done with ClickFunnels, honestly. Because we use ClickFunnels all the time. In this business, Blue Ocean e-commerce, that's what we build all of our landing pages out and stuff with. And it's like, I think it's pretty solid. Like it's a good software, but I'm not even sure if it's like the best one, but they're just so good at marketing it that it's almost kind of like the default, in my opinion.
I think it's really easy to use. Unlike other guru softwares, hint, anything Alex Becker's ever put out, it actually works really, really well, and it's not just a
Mhm.
talk.
All right, shitting on Becker. I like it. I like it. No, I'm just kidding. I like Becker. um, but yeah, I mean, that's basically what we wanted to get across, guys. Starting a business that puts food on the table is nothing like it's portrayed in like culture and society and the things that you're probably used to. And the sooner that you can kind of get that idea out of your head of like starting a startup and needing funding, and I mean, that is one way to do it, but it's just not the way that makes sense when you're first starting out. Like, not at all. And I think the way that does make sense is kind of the way we do things: direct response marketing, very lean, focusing on profitability right off the bat, and just basically putting an offer in front of someone. That's like at the root of it. That's really the main thing. And if you just focus on that, I think you're going to be a lot more successful, a lot quicker. And you won't have to go through that phase where you think you need to invent something in order to make money, because that's just like such a stupid phase.
Remember when you invented your AirPods?
Yeah, so that was like one of me and my buddies. We were in high school. This is probably like, shoot, man, this is probably like 7, 8 years ago now. We literally had the idea for AirPods before AirPods were a thing. And like we we honestly planned it out. Like, we had a bunch of stuff and we wanted to do it, but obviously we were like 16, didn't have any money. Like, how the hell were we going to develop a product from scratch? That's just like so difficult. Like, even for me now, that would be incredibly difficult. I think I could do it now if I wanted to develop some sort of a custom product like that. But it would be so much harder than what we're currently doing, just selling products that already exist. Like, you don't need to invent anything, I promise.
Would you think we wrap it up there?
I think that's about it for this one, guys. That's about it. Starting a business that puts food on the table. It's not quite like it's portrayed in the movies or on Shark Tank. Just stop watching Shark Tank. Honestly, like, don't even look at that as a way to like think about business, because it's not very helpful in my opinion. It could be entertaining.
That's honestly true in that watching stuff like that is quasi informative is probably worse than just watching fucking Bugs Bunny. Because nobody
Bugs
watches
Bunny.
Bugs Bunny and then gets false ideas.
Yeah, I would agree, man. I would agree. And side note, it's also hilarious. Like, the businesses that they have on Shark Tank, I don't even know how they get some of those, like, how some of those people get on there. People with literally zero sales can go on there. Like, I think we deserve to be on Shark Tank more than most people, honestly.
Yeah. That would be a funny presentation, however.
That would be hilarious. But that's the thing. We don't really need the money. We don't need to give away equity to to get funding, because we run a small, lean online business. And I mean, small relative to, like, obviously like Fortune 500 companies, but pretty big in terms of like individual income. It's pretty solid. So
Highly recommend.
highly recommend. Highly recommend. All right, guys, that's it for this one. We'll talk to y'all in the next one.